I would like to welcome you to the next talk on the studio stage, and that is, as Maya already teasered during the keynote this morning, the NEOS brand is currently undergoing a revolution, an evolution. I'm looking forward to Maya's talk, where she will share all the insights with us. So please come on stage. Maya.
So I was taught never to tell the audience when you're worried or unprepared, so I won't. I'm super prepared. I've rehearsed this 52 times. I know everything that's going on in these slides, and I'm not scared at all of any of you. I am here to tell you about the NEOS brand Evolution Plus 2.0. Who knows? This is me. But we know that. What are we going to talk about? Consider this like school. First things first, we need to learn what is a brand, because we want to talk about branding. And that is important, because sometimes things get confused. And then we want to talk about how did we get where we are. And then after that, which makes absolute sense, we'll figure out where we are, and then where to go next. I'm just realizing now that it makes zero sense, but let's just roll with it. What's in a brand? I know that especially in like the dev space, considerations of brand and style are often tedious and kind of annoying. But having somewhat recently switched into project management, I now find myself in the situation where I speak to customers and they go, okay, but why don't we do this with insert inferior CMS here? And I realized that while my heart beats NEOS, I often didn't have an answer. And that isn't because NEOS isn't awesome. It's just because I didn't have the talking points to tell them. And then I realized I don't have those because you haven't told me. And in many aspects, a lot of CMSs compare really well. But all of a sudden, I found this to be a pain point. I love the community. I love hanging out with you. I love having a drink or a coffee with you and speaking to you, and I love the software that we produce, but when I am confronted with the question, why use this? I was at a loss for words, and I didn't want to stay that way. So last year at the conference, we talked. But back to, what is in a brand? Brands are perceived as they present themselves, not as they feel to themselves. But, my favorite slide, it's not in the color, it's not in the symbol, it's not in the lettering. It's this holistic construct of different aspects that belong to a brand. Now, within the Jung von Matt universe, we, Jung von Matt Tech, aren't the brand experts. So doing this open source effort, we tried to stick to the stuff that we knew, which are personality, design, and website. That is what we could help with, and that's what we tried to help with in this process. And now to my logical fallacy of how did we get here before having discussed where we are. Like I said, I have been in this new position, and I have struggled with selling NEOS, which at the end of the day is something that we kind of need to do. Even if it feels icky sometimes, it's something that we need. We're so proud of the software, each and every one of us, and our contributions, but we don't sell it as the awesome sauce stuff that it is. And that's what I tried to talk about in the keynote earlier, that there's a difference between introspection and external perception. So following the NEOSCon last year, that was like a pain point for me, and I started talking to a bunch of different people about it, including our managing director, Michel, who felt a lot of the similar ways. And we had some resources in our creative team, and she said, you know what, why don't we just do like a little design challenge? We'll onboard our team. We'll tell them what NEOS is and does. We'll show them the website. We'll have them pick it apart. Something that we do a lot. And we came up with like a ton of stuff. We came up with a suggestion that I presented to some people inside the NEOS community that we called the website evolution. It had 4 parts. It had low-hanging fruits, where we said the website right now, as we present ourselves, is cool, but maybe it would be more understandable, more easily digestible to people outside of our community if we just restructured some of the contents. And then we went through different iterations and talked about different stuff. We talked a lot about like visuals. There was like pictures of like, you can kind of see it there, like a baby eating cake that didn't really speak to me. I don't know. Who doesn't love cake, right? So we just made some like slight suggestions, just content changes, reordering things, and we went through a lot of stuff. But then we also suggested an evolution, and then like a bit of an evolution plus, and then the evolution double plus with more radical changes to the menu structure, for instance. And then we kind of felt like, well, maybe it doesn't need an evolution or an evolution plus. Maybe it needs a revolution. Maybe it needs a group of people to think about, like, what is a software community? What is a software? What do people look for? What do people need? What do people expect? And then the more we talked about this, we realized, okay, all of that is cool, but the community is so important. So we said, before we do anything, before we sketch anything, before we draft anything, before we suggest anything, we need some input from the community. So we drafted 2 surveys. You might remember them. Yes. Can I have like a show of hands who filled it out? Honestly, ooh, damn, awesome. That's really cool. So we figured we would hear your voices. How do you see yourself? Where do you want to be? Where do you feel like we are? How do we want to speak? So we drafted a lot of questions with a somewhat scientific approach, because Fabian, who was my partner in crime, actually wrote his master thesis on this. So there was actual empirical stuff. I don't know. But you might remember many of these posts, often accompanied by a meme or 2, or honestly, we had a secret closed Slack channel. It's called meme mining. But this could go on. Actually, I really don't even know how long it goes on. Most of these weren't posted because they didn't pass our very high meme standard expectations. So we just made more. You might remember, like, we might recognize some of them because some of them did show. That one, I think, showed up. I don't know. I don't even remember. How long is this slide? Whoop. That's the last one. So we kept pushing this survey because we had like 13 responses, and Fabian was frustrated because he said 13 responses. Like, I can't pull anything empirical out of this. I can't base my master thesis on 13 responses. So we were really annoying. And looking back, about a year-ish later, I would like to apologize for that. But it was also a lot of fun. Was the survey good for anything? Yes, it was. There are 2 key takeaways that I loved. My favorite question, you might remember, there's 2 questions about the Olympics of CMSs or something. Specifically, in the CMS championship, which disciplines do you know NEOS will win? The overwhelming majority of you said the editing experience and the extensibility, which, duh. That's what NEOS is great at. And then we realized, okay, then this is what we need to push. This is what we're proud of. This is what we need to sell to the outside. Screw our humility. we don't need to be humble about this because this community created a software that's great at these two things. Or even, I mean, ease of use, power of community, there it is. These are things that we're good at. Why be humble about them? But then the next question was the one that I loved. I just only loved this one. The other one I loved. And that is, in the same championship, which games do you wish Neos would win in the future? And as you will see, the majority said market presence. And I went, interesting that that's what people want, because they don't do anything for it. Because our birth defect of humility stands in the way of bragging. And a lot of other CMSs are very good at bragging. Maybe they shouldn't be bragging, but they are. And so we're not selling ourselves as boldly as we might. And that's basically my entire hidden agenda, is I want to sell Neos for what it's great at. So then, we drafted what's called a minimal viable brand workshop, an MVB, where we contacted a few people. I call them the Council of Wise Men. I'm not sure they ever heard me say that. Where we spoke to, they're on the next slide. We spoke to Sebastian, Toby, and Robert. We had invited, I think, Christian and/or Carsten, some others, but things fell through. But we needed a small group of people because these workshops are incredibly complex. And we couldn't, it didn't scale. We couldn't invite 50 people, or 100 people, or even 20 people, because with 4 people, it took 4 hours. And every last one of my nerves. Like, this is all stuff that we worked on. Like, you can't even see them. Do you see these dots? That's a Post-it where somebody wrote something on that. And this is zoomed all the way out. We had like a little market analysis. How do other CMSs present themselves? And then there's all of this that we filled out and spoke about, all on the basis of your survey answers. We brought those, we analyzed those, we put them onto those slides, and then we took them apart, challenged them, looked at them. This is a close-up of one of the slides where we are proud of our craftsmanship and the community and the ease of use. This is a diagram regarding the voice of Neos. How does Neos speak to people? Where some of the points were like highly contested, and they actually like started discussing where I didn't anticipate it at all, and others I would have anticipated some discussion, and they were like, "Oh no, we're super." I don't know if I don't remember what it was. We're super unconventional. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, sure." So we had all of this data, and then we did what you do with data, and started like a design exploration that then in one iteration we challenged with the same group of people. And this design exploration went bonkers. We're gonna do something similar to the meme thing just now. This is the very first anything. I hated it. It's too dark and too gloomy, and it didn't feel like the friendly Neos community. But other people said, yeah, but it's super like techie. And then we went through other things with different fonts. You will be, like, as I scroll through these, you will recognize individual pieces that we liked and carried on to. Oh, this is also not chronological. That Figma board is a mess. It's insane. There's just boards and boards and boards and drafts and designs, and it's like I get anxiety looking at it because there's 100 files, all of them have 200 designs, and I tried to grab just the header of a fraction of them. But you will see that there's like repeating elements. There's those pixels. You can obviously see that we stuck to the blue world. Oh yeah, that was one thing I said. I said we stick to the logo and we stick to the name and we stick to the blue world. Everything else is up for grabs, but I'm not fighting that fight. And I love the Neos N, and it's everywhere, and we're sticking to that. So we kept that. But everything else we kind of poked at and prodded and stretched and tried. But as I said, you will see that a lot of it is blue And then then we moved away from the pixels for a bit. Then we tried using buttons that kind of look like the publishing button. But this is all exploration. We looked at it. Oh, I loved that cutout shape. Loved it. Nobody else did. And then you also see that there's like fonts that keep being reused that I hated and everybody else loved. Design is so subjective. We even tried our hand at a new login wall. This is discarded, don't worry, we're not, but we were just expanding and trying and touching and looking and so on. So it keeps and then, next slide. I have the preview for the next slide. And then we had more meetings and we showed first drafts to the community and then we had more feedback, and then eventually all of the bits and the pieces and the pixels and the fonts and the everything resulted in this. And we never wanted a big ta-da moment. That's why I snuck it into the keynote this morning, and that's why I'm just showing this. This is never supposed to be like a big reveal moment, because this is a collaborative effort. But this is the new, I want to say this is the new Neos website, but it isn't. I don't have a big button that sets it live. We had like fantasies of that at one point. It wasn't feasible. But this is what we want the website to look like, which is already an improvement, right? Like it's a thing. So we did a thing. But then we only had a design in a Figma file, in 80 Figma files, one of 200. So we had a rebranding kickoff sprint in Zurich. I see some of you faces that were there, you for instance. And we took some fun pictures of us talking about things and fighting about menu structures. This was a very intense conversation about that we created personas, who opens neos.io, and then we started to channel marketing Melanie and Vorstandsvolker, sorry for the English speakers. What are they looking for on a website? And there were post-its and conversations and deep thought and cursing. Love when developers curse. It's always a good thing. This was already in the keynote. I love this picture. This looks, and then obviously I snuck my dog into the, this was also at the sprint. And I can't have, this is my dog. And basically that's what we're at. This is step 6. Which leads me back to my initial question of how did we get here, is where the hell are we? So now there's going to be a bit of a, I've tried to keep the slides in the Jung von Matt branding, prepare for a jarring switch to the new Neos brand of blues and whites. Whenever I was working on the slides, the switch was always very drastic, so here it is. This is what we're going with. I hope you don't hate it. No, actually, I hope you love it. I hope you can get behind it. I hope you want to help us develop this more. Neos is going to present itself with these pixelated visuals. You see them all over the place already. They're on the walls downstairs. They're not here, but they're here. They're on your shirts. They are, I've seen them on all of the speakers, the slides that show up between the speakers. They're on the YouTube video thumbnail. They're starting to sneak their way into the branding. So we're working with these pixelated visuals and also these elements with pixel icons and with these flying pixels, we've been calling them, that aren't decorative, exclusively decorative. They can hold information. They can be clickable. They can be interactable. So they're not just a grid in the background. We have updated slightly the primary colors, I think, and added the gradient. We have added tints and shades for transparency value things. And we have added new secondary colors. This was, I think, the most painful part of it all, because at some point there was like 8 of them, and then we hated 3, so we threw them out, and then we added 4 more, and then there was 9 of them. And then we condensed them down, and then we tried to figure out something that would work with the blue, complement the blue, but also contrast it a little bit, make it a little bolder, a little edgier, a little less humble, a little more braggy, a little bit more loud, because we don't have to hide what this community creates. This is my favorite part. I love the new typeface, and I've been seeing it all over the slides, downstairs on the script. I love this typeface. Would you look at that ampersand? Look at the ampersand. It is beautiful. Yeah, big fan. We're using it in several different weights, but this is, I think, the medium for showing purposes. And then out of all of these design bits and pieces and elements and pixel elements and fonts and colors, we drafted this this first screen of a website, which is also what we implemented at, or started to implemented at the 2 sprints. This animation cost me everything. And then the final product, I didn't even make. I needed help. PowerPoint animations are hard. But so yeah, we have these elements. Resolution is awesome sauce. But you're starting to recognize the 2-colored headlines, the blockiness of it. The pixelation. Yeah. On purpose. Pixelated visuals. Didn't I say that? Yeah, so we're using those block elements throughout. We're sticking to the blues, but breaking them a little with the secondary colors. I'm sorry, again, to the English speakers, I'm gonna have to use one German phrase because it was like the thing that we kept saying at the sprint is, this is a angefressene Ecke. It's a chewed-on corner, I guess, that is throughout the design to like break things up. And then for the start page or the home page, we thought about this like parallax element where we can brag with our cases. Again, show them, present them. Was anybody else at the talk about the talk from Leonard this morning? Yes. What a freaking cool case. We need to brag with this kind of stuff. So like a parallax thing, and then maybe an element where when you hover, this thing opens. This is a design choice, because if you just put pictures of all of the cases, it gets a little wild and colorful, because all of the brands have their own branding, so they only pop up when you hover, so they're not all on there at the same time. You can tag them with e-commerce, for instance. We have teaser elements with more angefressene Ecken. We have the call to action that is kind of inspired by, but not exactly the publish button. But because community, yes, these are stock images. And the name is outdated. But we have, because we've found that the community is integral to the community, we want to showcase the members. We want to showcase who's active, who's contributing. We want to meet the community. And then a big point of contention was the service provider listing, because for obvious reasons, ranking in a service provider listing is very important to all of us. So there were many discussions about how we could find a fair way to contrast people who work alone with larger agencies and contributors who contribute their time, weigh them against contributors who contribute their money. So there was a lot of discussion about that, and I think we ended with something cool, and then every website needs a footer. This is super duper interesting. Then we heard some skepticism about the boldness of it all. And some of the people in the community didn't see themselves. They said it looked like a website for another JavaScript software. I was hurt. But that's a valid point. we don't want to take a design and stick it on your head and say, this is NEOS now. So we listened and we drafted like an alternative header with the suggestion of using this for everything that's community related to make it a little bit more bright. We also had talks about using a light and dark mode, but then I would forever see the blue because who uses light mode anyway? So as you can see, this is like, we're working with these things. We're listening to the community. We're happy about input. But yeah, and then we have a claim. We have a claim now. Positioning ourselves as enterprise, for one, but also visual because we see what we do, and open source because that's what we love. And then the values. You might remember, I'm not wearing my thing, humility, trust, respect, and someone, thank you. We don't want to throw those away. Those are core values of this group of people that gets together and does cool things. But listening to the survey and listening to the Council of Wise Men and weighing things, maybe speaking to the outside world, we are suggesting something like this, because we are proud of our craft, we are kind at the same time, and we show ambition. And I think all of that reflects with most talks that I've heard today, because I hear so much ambition in talks about staying on top of refactoring and improving our code. That's an ambitious task. Obviously, we don't need to talk about kindness. This is a kind community. There's the skip. But also, we're so proud of our craft, and we get to be proud of our craft, and we get to brag a little. So I'm trying to find a group of people who are willing and brave enough to brag more for the sake of everybody in the community who's too humble to brag. All right, and where do we go from here? That's a question. That was the answer. Oh, to the stream, he suggested the social event. Yeah, we're back to step 6, which is where we are, which is the step that I left you off earlier. We're going to need your help. We have a list of content elements that we're going to need designed and implemented and integrated, so that we can actually use that cool new start of a website the seed that we planted. And we need people. And when I said earlier we need designy people, yes, we need designy people. You there. Well, I had my first sign up. Super thrilled. But that doesn't mean that we don't need everybody else. We need everybody else for developing content elements. We need everybody else for integrating them. We need everybody else's input. And we need everybody else's support. Because I can't stand here and say, look at this brand, this is our new brand, and then I don't decide that. I need support. And last point that's super important to me, that this isn't my accomplishment. I'm not a designer. I'm not a developer anymore. My role in this was to bring people together that know things better than I do, and to have them talk. I didn't make any decisions. I asked for opinions and threw them together. And yeah, I was a facilitator for a large group of people. For the next slide, I'm going to throw a controversial question here. Anybody in here know Star Wars? I'm going to need you to imagine the theme. There. I need to thank a bunch of people. I need to thank Fabian and Marika and Nino, who stuck their heads together with me, and I don't know, when everything seemed scary and wild and insane, who talked to me about stuff. I need to thank the Council of Wise Men, Robert, Toby, and Sebastian. I need to thank the Marketing Guild, Sepp, but also Stefan Regnet. I need to thank all of the participants at the sprint and at the Zurich sprint and the remote sprint. Hold on a second. Cyril, Piotr, and Piotr, both from Warsaw. Markus, John, Mark Henry, Jonas, Damian, Dimitri, Manu, Michel, Stefan, and then I need to also thank our design team, because designers are amazing. They suggest something and you say no thank you, and they go, okay, how about this? My confidence would break forever, but they just go, okay, I'll make a new thing. So I need to thank Joel and Leo and Josh and Saskia and Lukas and Michelle for kind of kicking my butt into this whole thing in the first place. And I want to thank Tina from Sandstorm for being the brave first person to take the brand thing that we created and turning them into this, which is cool. And to the NEOS community, obviously, for your input. Without your criticism and without the survey, I wouldn't have known what to do. And my team at Jungformat. And that's the thanking business done. And that's essentially it. The big rebrand that isn't finished. Because we need help, and we need opinions, and we need to fight things out. Because after all, this is a big group of people with a lot of opinions, and they're all welcome. And yeah, this was a really cool journey. It was really frustrating at times, but also very, very, very fun. And about the implementation, John Ullman has volunteered to kind of lead and steer development efforts, because I'm out of that business. And so he's also here in case you threw questions into the thing that are on the tickier side. He will help with those. And I think that's it. This is my final slide. I have no more slides. Please don't ask any hard questions.
Well, Maya.
Yes.
You did it.
I did it.
You're finished.
No, I still have to host all meditated tomorrow. I'm almost finished.
But you finished your talk.
Yes,
and it was
I did.
Great. There's people saying, how are you so freaking awesome? That's not a question. That's an
Caffeine.
That's an exclamation mark. There are some questions.
Yes. Oh.
If I'm allowed.
Yeah.
The one I noticed when looking at the slides, the accessibility of the white text on the yellow pixels.
Yes.
Have we thought about that?
We have thought about that. We've considered it a lot. Final decisions are outstanding. Not as in they are awesome, but they are not there yet.
Yeah. I would.
But it has been considered. Accessibility was definitely a topic, and one that sparked a lot of conversation. But yeah, we have. It's not a yes. Has been. The question was, has it been considered? It has been considered.
So what you saw obviously is a work in progress.
Yes.
All right.
The idea, like the framework is there, but it's not, obviously it's not live. Like I said, there's no big button that we hit and we go, ta-da, because that's nonsense. So it's still happening. But it's not happening right now because nobody's helping.
And there's a question, how can people participate? Are there new sprints planned yet? Do you know?
There are not. The last sprint failed miserably because of a lack of people to kick butts, because I was too busy to kick butts and nobody else, no, that's not fair. Nino kicked butts, but Nino's butt kicking power needed more support. So help us kick butts, and we would love to have another sprint. But before we can get like really, really active, we need more things to develop. So we need more designing people.
Front-end people and people not working on NEOS 9 at the moment.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was another thing, obviously.
Yeah. So the team is very split at the moment between NEOS 9 and this rebranding effort. So if you're not working on NEOS 9 or Flow 9, and you want to help, then have a look at the rework for our branding, the website, the components. That would really help.
We have a rebranding channel. I had like a useful link slide that I apparently deleted. So I do not have useful links. But there is a Slack for the rebrand, and if you're lost, just message me. I'm there too. Just have a question, throw it my way.
All right. Don't forget to rate Maya's talk, and thank you very much for all these insights, taking us through your personal journey. And I'm looking very much forward to seeing you on stage in the future, and that won't be far away. So thank you very much for your talk, Maya.